Hi, my name is McKenna, and I teach 5th grade. And today I'm going to talk to you about the importance between understanding and controlling your emotions. When I was a child, I was an absolute menace of a kid. I would kick, I would scream, I would bite, I would fight. When my parents left the car, I would lock all the doors. And it was the old cars that didn't have the key locks, and I'd just hold my hands on it and just scream. But then I went to school, and I got structure, and I got a schedule, and it helped. And I learned really on that school was going to be really, really hard the whole way through. That learning to read was going to be the hardest thing I ever had to do in school. And so I channeled all my emotions towards that until I got to high school. And then I needed something else to do to channel my emotions, to control myself. And I found that if I put a helmet on in football and lacrosse, that I could hit and scream and bite and fight, but this time around, people would applaud me for it. And so I put all my energy into school and sports. But what I was really doing was controlling and bottling up everything that I felt until I'd get home after practice, and I'd find my way to my room, and I'd sit there, and I'd turn my punk up as loud as it would go, and I would be completely and utterly controlled by my thoughts. And on most days, I'd just sit there and I would cry. At 18 years old, I'd sit there and not know what to do. Because I was convinced that every other person at my school and every other person my age had it figured out. And I just figured if I worked hard enough in school and hard enough in sports, that someday I'd just wake up and everything would be great. And I'd be like everybody else. So I kept doing that. And then I got to college, and I kept working on school, and I kept putting on a helmet. Turns out after college that for most of us, when you put on a helmet and scream and bite and fight, that it's not really encouraged, that it's not really allowed. So I had a friend ask me, and he said, "How are you doing?" And I shared with him everything that I've shared with you today. And he looked at me and he said, "If your foot was broken, you'd go see a doctor. If you tore something in your knee, you'd go see somebody. If you had something wrong with your stomach, you'd go see somebody else. So why, when you knew something was wrong, are you not doing something about it? Are you not talking to people about it?" So I went and saw a counselor for the first time. And it was terrifying, sharing all these things with a stranger. But I realized that by sharing these things, by talking about my emotions, that it was no longer something that I needed to hide. It's not something I needed to be embarrassed by. And so I started sharing with all the people that I was around. And I started asking all my close friends how they were doing, how their brains were doing. And it turns out a lot of them didn't have it figured out like I thought. So I made a point every single time I ended a phone conversation with my friends to tell them that I loved them. And I still, to this day, every single time I end a phone conversation with my close friends, I tell them that I love them. And I'm here to tell you today that all of us have emotions. And they're not all always happy. And they're not all always in a box. And they're not meant to be controlled. They're not something you should be embarrassed of, not something you should hide. So there are two things that you need to do today. You need to ask someone that you're close to how they're doing and actually listen. And the second thing is to find someone in your life that you're close to, that you don't usually tell this to tell them that you love them. Because emotions aren't meant to be controlled, they're meant to be understood, and they're meant to be shared. Thank you.